Thanks everybody for coming in and dealing with the a few minutes here of us reminding ourselves how to do this because it's been a while from our COVID existence where we had to do many more meetings on Zoom. I hope you are safe and warm wherever you are. It doesn't look like there's too much ice out there right now, at least at my house, and hopefully we stay kind of ice free for the rest of the night. But thank you for joining us for State of the School. We're going to spend some time tonight. I'm going to talk about some demographics of the school, where we are this year, what we think our markers for next year will look like, and then give an update on our strategic plan, which we unveiled at the State of the School last year, talk about some of the things that we have done and what we're looking for next year. And then if we have some time, we'll take some questions. If you could submit those in the chat. You can either submit them openly or you can send them privately to Zoom Trailblazers, and Nyla Neely is in the chat monitoring that. With nothing else, I'll just go ahead and get started. We just finished a January term, and January term to me is one of the most exciting and simultaneously exhausting parts of the school year, where we really feel this adage that learning is not a spectator sport. Everyone is out and doing and immersing themselves in kind of whole body learning. Nothing perhaps more extreme than our ice climbing J term. And hopefully the tech's going to work for this little video to play. Those were our ice climbers summiting Mount Washington in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. The climb crew that we had on site had a drone that was taking video and footage. And their experience was remarkable. And when I looked at the photos, I think perhaps the one that would terrify me the most in terms of learning not being a spectator sport. But regardless of what our students were doing, if they were at a pickleball tournament or touring in Japan or swimming in Belize, or even on campus, participating in their own reality TV game show challenges, which were hilarious. Um, it was just a total event, total 3 weeks of participatory learning, where students really get a chance to see content in ways that you maybe don't see in the regular semester, because you can take that deep dive and take that time. And it's a great time at university, high school. I know a number of you came out to our January term symposium and saw their work. So thank you for having your kids participate in a great J term. Um, One of the things I wanted to start with today was a reminder about some other events and things we've done. We take very seriously our mission to expand hearts and minds of our students, and that was a vibrant, forward-facing mission when our board chose it 25 years ago. And we periodically review it. Do we need to update it? There are schools that change their mission. Every time our board debates it, every time we talk about it as a staff, it is true that we feel that mission is still spot on and important for a number of things. So I'm sharing this John Dewey quote. John Dewey was a father of the idea of progressivism in schools. And it's this reminder that education is a social process. It is growth. It is not preparation for life, but it is life itself. So reminding ourselves on the daily that the work that we're doing here is preparing our students for the next step, is preparing them for college, but it's also real life learning and growth that is happening right now. Um, some of you had a chance to join us in the fall when we had some parent events around two books, Never Enough by Jennifer Wallace and The Emotional Lives of Teenagers by Lisa D'Amour. And I just wanted to give these books a shout out and a plug. If you haven't read them, they're good parent reads. Many of you know my daughter's a sophomore, so I'm living the high school parent experience right now, and there were a number of aha moments for me, even though I've been working with high schoolers and teens for 20 years, just on reflecting about how we support young people, how we help them feel valued, how we help them feel like a part of a community in a way that is honoring them as the people that we are now. One of the researchers that Jennifer Wallace touches on is Richard Weisbord at Harvard, who says, if we're building a self-identity, and which is what every young adolescent is doing in those high school years, that self-identity becomes stronger and more mature, less by being praised, less by the external markers of success, and more by being known. And being known is, of course, a hallmark of the university high school experience. So those are just kind of some big thoughts on my mind from January term, and the importance of our mission as we look to the spring semester. But I wanted to share tonight, kind of in two phases, a little bit about the current and future health of the school from some quantitative ways that we look at this, and then we'll talk about the strategic plan and what we're doing moving forward there. Um, so first, just to recap, and I know we have some prospective parents on with us tonight, some parents who have already signed their enrollment contract for next year for new students, some who are still considering it. So a little context. We current enrollment is 352 students. I got the kind of the grade breakdown there. Right now, our classes are averaging 17 students. That's the actual mathematical average. They mostly fall in this range of 16 to 22 students. That's the size we've been for the last 3 or 4 years now. That's the size we will likely stay. It's the size we want to stay for a couple of reasons. One, we feel that 17 student average is best for delivering our program and our academic approach where kids and teachers have real relationships. And a part of that is that our teachers, on average, teach about 70 students in the semester. Again, if you're looking at some of our private competitors and certainly our public competitors, teachers are teaching 90, 100, in some of the larger public schools, 120 students in a semester, and we want to consciously keep that low to build that environment. We are currently 32% students of color. We are about 32% students who receive need-based financial aid. It's not the same 32%. I don't want to create a miscorrelation there, but it is important to the school as we think about the health of our student body and the way we want our student body to look, that we stay or exceed about the 30% mark for socioeconomic diversity and also racial and ethnic diversity. Gender diversity, we're closer to 50-50. We're a little bit heavy on boys, I know that, but we're closer to 50-50. There's a lot of research about how a non-dominant group to feel included needs to hit a critical mass of somewhere between 20 and 30% of a population. And we want to see that happen. So we want to stay in the 30% or better range. And if we look at trends for next year, enrollment we're projecting to be about the same, perhaps growth a little bit. We always pick up some transfer traffic. So we've got that large junior class will become seniors. They're at 103 right now. They could be exactly at 103, but typically see a little movement there. We hope to pick up some transfer sophomores. Our current freshman class at 77 is a little lower than we'd like it to be, so we're looking at some transfer applications there, and then another freshman class in that 80 to 85 range. Again, that should put us on the mark for a student body enrollment, class size enrollment, teacher load enrollment to be right about where it is right now. This is really the sweet spot of full enrollment that we've hit in the last 3 or 4 years. It is also conveniently the capacity for our facilities. So if you are a parent of a younger student or an incoming student and you're thinking, will the school get much bigger in the next 4 years? The answer is likely no, because it will require additional building, and we're not at we're not ready for that yet. It's not coming in 4 years, maybe in 10. So that's our enrollment forecast. Looks healthy, looks about on track with where we are now. From a financial standpoint, this is the audited statements from the prior year. Last year, 23-24, our total income was right around $9 million. And I want to talk a little bit about income sources. Most of that is the tuition and fees that parents pay. It's 72% of our revenue. Our other revenue sources include summer school, earned revenue, that is sales of things in the Blazer Boutique and whatnot. That's relatively small. Summer school brings in about 2%, other earned revenue about 4%. money that we take that offsets the cost of financial aid, which includes funds from scholarship granting organization and school choice vouchers, which make up some of our financial aid packages, is about another 8% of revenue. And then a large part, almost 15%, is contributed income. So those who give to the U Fund or give to support a restricted program like robotics, or give unrestricted money towards expenses of the school. Thank you for participating in that. It's 15% of our income and certainly helps us deliver the programming that we want to deliver. On the expense side, in terms of financial health, we spent just under 9 million last year, so we're working within our means, working within our budget. The largest expense of the school has always been and continues to be salary and benefits, makes up 63% of our expenses. Our bond financing is roughly 10% of our budget, so that's $900,000 a year. We spend a lot on the bond that we acquired several years ago when we built Fairbanks Hall. We're working to manage that and continue to pay that down, but currently that's a significant expense. 9%, close to 10% is on just programming costs, classroom supplies, freshman retreat, things like that. About 5% in other infrastructure, which is everything from our janitorial contract to liability insurance, payroll, and accounting, maintenance and utilities costs. Fixed asset costs are that 7% wedge, which includes our transportation, buses, bus maintenance, technology, and infrastructure investment in the physical plant. There are many things that cost money at our school, but when you think about salaries and programming costs, that's definitely the bulk of where we're spending our money, which is exactly what you'd want it to be. We want to take the dollars that you commit either through tuition or gifts and turn them right back around and making sure that the school is delivering a program that is worthy of your investment. So thank you for participating in that. So enrollment is healthy, financial outlook is healthy. Um, those of you who have been around before have heard me talk about our course evaluation system. We use a program called the Wellington Engagement Index. Students twice a semester place a dot on a graph. The x-axis measures how they perceive the enjoyment of the class. So the further in the positive numbers it goes, the more they like it, and the further in the negative, the more they dislike it. And the x-axis measures challenge. So the higher up the number, positive numbers, the more challenged they are, the lower into the negative numbers, the less challenged they are. And then what the Wellington School, who developed this, considers engagement is the union of enjoyment and challenge. So if you can see my mouse, it's everything up there in quadrant 1 on the graph. We tend to have a number of dots that cluster here, but we have them spread throughout the spectrum. Wellington considers this engaged. They consider if I am challenged but don't like it, that class to me is a grind. If I am not challenged and I love it, then that class is entertaining. And if I am unchallenged and don't like it, then I'm bored. We have relatively few students who hang out in the bored section. I'll show you a stat on that in a second. But for the most part, we want to see students rate their classes as engaging, but it's not a desire that everything will be in the engaged quadrant. I tell the kids often, for me, PE would have always been a grind dot. I was very challenged because I'm not very physically gifted, and I didn't really like it. And then my band class, which I actually loved, but I spent a lot of time, took trumpet lessons, played in ensembles outside of the school. The actual content of the class, I probably would have said is not particularly challenging, even though I enjoyed it. So my dot might be down in the bottom. So there are lots of reasons why students rate classes certain ways, but we tend to look at trends in how they're doing that. So Wellington switched the visual data reporting system that they use. So I don't have these circle graphs look slightly different, though it's the same data. Like I said, we like to see things in engaged. If you've heard me talk about the Wellington Index before, I noted a couple of things. One, um, our engagement score post-COVID, we've been doing this assessment since 2017, has come down. We were in the mid to upper 60s pre-COVID, and we've been looking at that. We've always been 60 or higher, but it's been below 65. And it's been more students feeling in the grind or in the entertained. So this is on the left here, the report from the students on their fall semester last year. And this is the report from fall semester this year that we just finished in December. And you can see we've spent some time talking about challenge, talking about perceived challenge in classes with our teachers, and we've seen some movement into more into the engagement in that mid 60s range, which was our pre-COVID numbers. I will say public school average for the Wellington Engagement Index, they do some public schools, tends to be in the 40s and 50s in terms of engagement, and then 50s to 60s for private schools. So we're exceeding their private school numbers. There are two things that Wellington continues to remark about our data. One is that this boredom index, those kids who feel I don't like it and I'm not challenged, the fact that we're below 5% is remarkable. They have very few schools that hang out there. And then Wellington, the first year we used it and we did our survey of January term classes, you can imagine with some of those amazing classes, our engagement score ratchets up into the 80s. And Wellington actually thought we broke their software the first year. And we continue to see a huge spike. I wasn't able to pull them out for this, the J term numbers, but again, engagement spikes up because everyone is enjoying those classes. Final marker of kind of how I think about the school when I think about its health and whether or not it's performing the way that it should perform is college preparation and placement. So this is just some early data for our current seniors. We do have 81 seniors, but two of them are one-year exchange students who are going back to study in Europe, in Germany, and in France. So they are not pursuing college here at university, which is why we have 79 degree-seeking students who are seniors. So our 79 seniors sent 566 applications to 205 schools, which is quite remarkable. We had several who made binding early decision commitments at Miami of Ohio, University of Vermont, Syracuse, and Oberlin. We have 16 students who have already enrolled, so they were into the school they wanted. They submitted their deposit, they're ready to go, which is outstanding. And Whitney and Tim in college counseling are just excited to see where the rest of the senior class falls as they get some more information here in the spring about other schools that they've applied to. We do have three National Merit Commended Scholars in this senior class, one semifinalist, and we just found out we have six finalists who've moved forward, two nominees to be U.S. Presidential Scholars, and then one Lilly Scholarship to Purdue. Um, a lot of schools talk about college placement as a part of their success metrics or their health metrics, and often it is in a list of um, how many schools did we get into? Are we in at the Ivies? Are we in at these major players? That is not university's philosophy. We get kids into the Ivies. They go to Harvard. They go to Stanford. They do very well. They go to the University of Michigan. They go to University of Virginia. They also go to IU and Purdue and Butler and a range of schools where they are successful. Our philosophy is to make sure that students are getting into the schools that are the right fit for them. And we continue to have high college placement um, for that. So those are kind of the current indicators of health of the school, where we are, what we're looking at for next year. Nyla, I know you've been looking at the chat and I saw there were a few things that went in there. Um, do you have any questions I should respond to at this time?
I do not yet.
Okay, awesome. Again, if you have questions, please put them up there. I forgot how It feels like you're talking in a vacuum when you're talking to a large Zoom meeting. So, really reminds me why I love live instruction at school. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just talking to my screen and my cat who's sitting in the room. Um, we'll go ahead then and transition, and I'll take any questions at the end too, to some of the strategic plan things that we're looking at this year. If you were with us last year or you've seen on our website, the board approved a strategic plan last winter in December of 2023 that has 5 goals across 4 areas. They are largely here in our 25th year about making sure we're continuing to deliver premier programs in the spirit of the school, that we are engaged in the broad Indianapolis community, the local Carmel community, to make sure that we have a wide spectrum of stakeholders from parents, prospective parents, community partners, friends of the school. We are looking at our long-term financial sustainability. I talk a lot about the financial health of the school, which we're in a very good place, but we are very much a 25-year-old, the way you would think of a 25-year-old human. We are out of college. We have a job. We are balancing all of the things we need to balance. We need to start working on saving for retirement, if you can follow that metaphor. So thinking about what do we need to do to pay down that bond that we have so that we have built up an endowment or reserves and can prepare for future enhancements, building projects, capital investments, things like that. And then with our 25th anniversary being here, thinking a lot about leadership and legacy. Do we have an agile board, an engaged board that's positioned to help us for the next 5 years and then beyond? So those were our pillars that we unveiled. I'll talk a little bit about progress in our first year of working with the strategic plan. At closing out last year, going into this year, we did some changes in staffing. You saw some announcements if you were here. We split the athletic and facilities department. We brought over Wes Priest from a teaching role to be our athletic director. He has a very coach-focused mindset. One of our premier programs initiatives is on making sure our extracurricular programs match our philosophy of education. So Wes has been taking on that charge in athletics. That's given John Walls time to dedicate to our financial health and infrastructure of our physical plant now as director of facilities. So we've put some staffing changes in place. We've enhanced some of our wellness programming, which Stacy Summit-Mann is going to talk about here in a minute. We've been working on departmental coordination and then the board working on some of that financial planning. So we've started to put small things in place to achieve our strategic goals. And a lot of the heavy lifting we're doing is coming as a part of our accreditation process. So you might have heard myself or Associate Head of School Dave Vesper talk about the Isaacs accreditation cycle before. Isaacs stands for the Independent School Association of the Central States. It's our accrediting body. They have a 7-year accreditation cycle in which you basically study yourself, then have a visiting team come out and validate, are you who you say you are, and do you meet the standards of membership that our association has? And then we make plans based on their recommendations and our own recommendations of where we want to go. I'm going to pause here and take a quick drink of water as my throat is giving out, and then I'll pick up in just a second. All right. We are in year 2 of the accreditation cycle. Last year, many of you participated in the Isaacs Constituent Survey, which is a survey instrument that then feeds the work we're doing right now, which is creating our self-study. So over the course of this year, the staff and board have been working on reports on many aspects of the school. So part of the Isaacs self-study process is generating a document that covers all of your curricular areas, that covers admissions, that covers athletics, that covers, for us, mentoring in January term, where we've documented here is what we're doing in all of these areas, and here are the plans and priorities that we have for the next 5 years. That's the document that next year in year 3, the accrediting team will take and judge us by. They'll be on campus in the fall. They'll have this document, and then basically their job is to say, yeah, that you have assessed where you are appropriately. So we're in that year two self-study process. And so a lot of the initiatives around program development, program evaluation are happening as a part of generating that document. As a couple of examples, one of our premier program's goals is to articulate and publicly document a vision for academics at university that ensures an innovative and consistent student experience while celebrating teacher autonomy and expertise. We are working on this. You've heard me talk. The faculty has come together around 8 elements of teaching and learning that we brought into our practice as part of the self-study. What the departments are doing this year is creating their updated curriculum plans and curriculum guides in line with those 8 elements of teaching and learning. And one of the things that you might have seen in the news, particularly in the fall, that we're also looking at are the new graduation and diploma standards in the state of Indiana. So if you've heard about this, uh, Indiana has changed its diploma requirements for Department of Education um, accredited schools. So mostly public schools, charter schools, anyone who receives accreditation through the DOE. Again, we receive our accreditation through Isaacs. It's recognized by the state, but we don't go through the DOE accrediting process. Um, those schools will have different graduation requirements beginning with the incoming class. So the class of 2029, those kids that are current 8th graders. There are a few things, I'm not going to spend too much time going over this, but certainly if there are questions, I can talk about it. There are some changes to the specific classes that are required. University wants to be aware of this, even though we're not required to offer the new Indiana diploma. We do have students who will want to pursue it for a variety of reasons. For example, if your student or a student takes advantage of the 21st Century Scholars Program to promote college access, those candidates will have to have an Indiana state diploma. So what we're looking at is how do we create a pathway by which a university student can achieve a state-sanctioned diploma. Um, it will require some minor changes to what we're doing. For example, one of the changes is you have to have a documented career counseling course. We already deliver that curriculum through college counseling, where we talk about PSAT scores, ACT scores, career assessment, interests, how to apply to college, how to afford college. Those curricular markers already happen in college counseling. So one of the changes that we need to make to our program for next year for those incoming freshmen is to transcript the college counseling process as fulfilling that career step. So there are some program adjustments that we're looking at as Indiana is rolling this out. Um, Again, we believe our graduation requirements are thorough. The information we get from colleges is that they are preparing kids for colleges. They meet college standards. We know that they reflect our mission and our values. For example, we require 4 semesters of fine arts. That's because in our mission, it says explicitly we want students to have academic, creative, and physical achievement. So we want that creative achievement to be a part of their experience. The new state diploma requirement does not require any art, but we're going to keep requiring art and requiring those classes that are central to our mission. Um, so if there are questions on this, I can talk more about it later, but it is a program thing that we're looking at as a part of our curricular evaluation this year. The big thing, and I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Summit-Mann, who's going to talk today about some of the work we've done in programming around student support. So another key initiative in our program's goal is this idea that we want to integrate college counseling, wellness, and academic learning support to create a cohesive, evidence-based approach to programming around how do we take that heart and mind aspect of our mission and deliver it. If curricularly we're documenting what we do on the mind side, the academic side, and we know what best practices of teaching are, how are we crafting that experience that gets at the heart? and things of that nature. So this has been a key initiative. We've put some things in place that teed up this initiative. So the addition of Ladea Conde's position as Director of Wellness. We've built in some infrastructure right now around retention and how we are supporting students who might be at risk to leave the school. That Stacy's team oversees. But really, we're doing a lot to try and blend together student support in a meaningful way. And I'm going to turn it over to Stacy to talk more about some of the surveying we've done and the work we've built around this initiative. So, Stacy, I'm going to let you talk because I'm about to cough again. So, I don't know where Stacy is in my big Zoom window. You got to unmute yourself.
Yes. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I think you can hear me now. Perfect. All right. Well, Alicia, thank you for giving us this opportunity. As she said, I'm going to talk predominantly about our wellness programming this evening and talk about a survey that you heard about hopefully in November, but wanted to give you a little bit more context about it this evening, talk about why we do it, as well as what those results were. So, as she said, in 2022, we onboarded Ladea Conde as our Director of Wellness, and at that time, we were looking for where does wellness currently exist in the school? And Lede and I kept calling that year our baseline year. This is our baseline. What are we looking for? And as Alicia said, thinking about beyond the classroom and the academic side of things, how are we capturing students' experience? What experiences are they having? And how does that impact in particular their mental health? And so as we're trying to capture this picture in this baseline, we were able to find this tool called the High Achieving Student Survey. From here on out, you'll probably hear me just call it the Student Wellness Survey. And we partnered with, if we could go to the next slide, please, a group called Authentic Connections. Authentic Connections is a third party to us. They were recommended by NAIS, the National Association of Independent Schools. And what we liked about their survey was this survey specifically focuses on high school students as well as faculty. There's a faculty survey in independent and public schools, and it's both local, Midwestern schools, and across the rest of the United States. And why we're doing it, again, was to get the students' input. What is your experience? And in particular, what is your experience with your wellness, well-being, mental health in the school right now? The other thing that we really liked about this particular survey is that these were validated questions using about 3 decades worth of peer-reviewed science, and it helped highlight what our community strengths are, what we're doing well, and then also helped us identify priorities and actionable items as we built out our wellness programming. So this is the second time we took this survey. Again, we took it in November. The first time we took that survey was in November of 2022. And so it's important to note as we go to the next slide, about 50% of the school took the survey the first time around. And so you'll hear me reference back and forth 2022 to 2024, and we'll kind of go back and forth there. But again, in November, all of our freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors currently took this survey. And the student survey on the left there focuses on the 5 main components: individual well-being and mental health, school climate, parent relationships, and peer relationships. There's also then a section for free response where they can put verbatim anything that they want us to know or anything that's impacting them. The other important thing to note about this survey was that it is truly anonymous to the student, and the way it's reported out to us is in aggregate, and no fewer than 10 students who have identified themselves in particular groups can be reported out. So that is what we were working with the students, and that's what helps us then look at the data. So if we go to the next slide, process-wise, we took the survey in November. They analyze it at Authentic Connections. We had a meeting with them in December toward the end of the semester. And the first thing that the researcher said to us was, "I am so excited to meet you." I have been waiting for this meeting all week. And she then told us, like, we don't see scores this high this often. I feel like your students' responses, I actually know your school. I can see what you're doing in it, and good job. And so that was the initial opening comment, and felt really good. What she was focusing on was the number on the left hand of the screen, which is their well-being index. That's kind of their overall score. And it was an 88% for us, whereas the national average, again, comparatively, was 84. So we're doing really well in that area. Um, Beneath that, you see the fall 2022 87. So we improved on ourselves a little bit. And again, the average for the national there. On the right-hand side of the screen, the summary of the mental health indicators. This is another reason why we really liked the Authentic Connection survey, was it wasn't just reporting out students being able to tell us specific behaviors or how they were feeling, but it was able to correlate, in fact, those experiences with mental health symptoms. And those symptoms defined as anxiety, depression, and rule breaking in particular. And you also see isolation at school and substance use here. Another thing to note at the bottom, they use the stoplight system, but it works a little differently than we're familiar with. Yellow in the middle is the national norm. So that is kind of what they're seeing as the typical high school experience. If you're in orange or red, you're significantly above that norm. And if you're in the greens, you're below those norms. So for us, compared to the last time we took the survey in 2022, we've increased in anxiety a little bit, but we're still within the national norms of what they're seeing in high schools. Depression has decreased, still higher than what we would like it to be, but decreased for us. Rule breaking has decreased for us and is below those national norms. Isolation at school, we're holding steady, below those national norms. And then substance abuse compared to the last time is below, or decreasing, excuse me, and relative again to national norms, we're below that there. So overall, this was a great first start as we saw the big picture of where our wellness survey landed this fall. We can go to the next slide. This is really what excites us. So great, we're doing well, but tell us, what are the most important drivers when it comes to students' well-being and mental health, and tell us how to prioritize the different needs that we're seeing. And so on the left-hand side here, these are the three category items: school climate, peer-related factors, and parent-related factors. We know the things in these categories have a big impact to students' overall experience and mental health. And we know that sometimes when they report, when they report higher numbers in these categories, we know that then correlates to them possibly experiencing more mental health concerns. So going through these a little bit one by one, school climate and factors, having a sense of equity inclusion, having school behavioral standards that are holding students accountable and consistent, and those high standards and connections to teachers. I think we can all agree that that is a high priority for students' experience. Yes, of course, it's related to their overall mental health, and students were affirming that. They were saying, yes, this is important. We're in green there because for all of those, we're below those national norms, meaning we're doing a good job. Very few students reported concerns with not feeling included, or that they weren't being held to certain standards, or that they weren't connected to their teachers. That said, the numbers you do see are students who did say, yeah, maybe I don't totally, feel like I belong here yet, or maybe I don't understand what the school is wanting from me in terms of the standards, or maybe I'm still trying to find that teacher that I really connect with. So this telling us we're doing really, really well institutionally in this area. It is always and will continue to be a top priority, and just to be mindful of that. The second section here with peer-related factors, we see teasing, bullying, victimization, social media comparisons, and sexting. Compared to our 2022, the first two were in our 2022 survey as well. So this wasn't a surprise to us. These yellow indicators, remember, were right at the national norm for these. And this is an area that we want to continue to focus on. And we'll come back to these in particular, kind of on our key takeaways. The social media comparisons, I will say, was in our 2022 survey. The number here, the 114 comparatively, is a little bit higher than our 2022 survey. So that's definitely something that is on our mind about how when students are using social media and looking at social media of others, they're then reporting that it's making them feel worse. That's what that particular number there means. Lastly, the parent-related factors. And again, we're in schools, I teach in schools for the students, but of course I understand parents are one of our biggest collaborators. And so here, acknowledging that parent mood, when we're stressed or anxious, that may play into how the students are perceiving their particular experience. Unkindness, specifically their questions were related to anger, shame, humiliation, and then parent emotional distance, just the ability to have the capacity to be connected with the student at that time. So those again were some factors that were highlighted and said these are drivers of student mental health, and these should be top priorities as you're thinking about your wellness programming into the next couple of years. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Couple slides here I wanted to highlight. This is a snapshot of what the free response section looks like. They make a word cloud. The bigger the font is, the more times the students mention that particular word. And so again, really nice to see some of the faculty call outs there, some of the peer interactions, the activities, all of those things Alicia was talking about earlier. These show up in the free response sections that the students are talking about. I pulled a few of those specifically just so you could get a little bit of the enjoyment that I get from some of the strengths and comments and the comments that Lede gets to read as well. So from a ninth grader, the school makes everyone feel like they belong and they want to help us succeed. The school is great. From a 10th grader, my teachers are always willing to help me if I ever need it, and I always feel like I can ask for help. Many of my teachers are engaging and like to talk with me. And then two more, one from 11th grader. This might be my favorite. You'll see why in a minute. One of the many things that my school does really well is the sense of community that they have been able to create. Another major factor is the overall quality of the campus, where when the weather cooperates, I am able to sit outside and study in exquisite silence. So I liked that one quite a bit. And then from a 12th grader, and I love that this was from a 12th grader in particular, I will say. The mentoring program has been the most useful and supportive system at any school I have been at. Mentors make you feel supportive and give you another adult figure in your life to talk to anything about. And so those are just a quick snapshot of some of the free response that our students are willing to share with us and that greatly help build the wellness program and the work that Lede does in the school. If we go to, I think, my last slide then, so some key takeaways from this very quick overview. On the left-hand side, the data that we receive from these surveys for the last 2 years has continued to show us strong support for wellness programming in the school, that these are good resources. The students are using them and are thankful for them, as well as number two, our mentoring program and the freshman retreat. Number 3 and 4, some areas that students are highlighting continuously that we want to continue to improve on. That low grade teasing I mentioned, particularly in the 9th grade. Again, not a surprise. At any given year, we're pulling from students from 25 to 35 different middle schools, all coming together at that freshman retreat. And we know about a third of our school is new every single year. So that intentionality behind, building in those core values, talking about how we want those peer interactions to work. We know that's really important and work will continue to do. And then lastly, again, talking about social media and the importance that is a big part of their life and helping them understand the strengths and evils, if you will, of that is something that we can continue to work on together. On the right-hand side, then, we're actively building right now through the Isaac study Alicia mentioned, as well as this survey, the priorities for wellness programming for 25-26. And so LaDae is continuing to collaborate with students on building out small groups. That work has also been done in conjunction with Jake Thurman, Dean of Students, College Counseling, and Student Support Services. Number two, then, continuing to build out the freshman experience. We love freshman retreat. It's one of my favorite things all year, and we want to continue to support freshmen as we move through that whole year experience. Number three, I've mentioned again, focus on that social media and digital citizenship. And number four, continue with the parent education series. Alicia mentioned a couple of those that we had this fall with Jennifer Wallace and Lisa DeMoore, and those have been well received. Thank you if you've attended those. And we're looking to continue those parent education series and would welcome ideas that you have for those as well. So with that, if you have questions, Alicia will tell us when the time is for those. And otherwise, thank you for listening this evening. And feel free to reach out to me or LaDae if you have more questions about the Student Wellness Survey.
There we go. Thank you. I was waiting for Nyla to invite me to unmute, and then I realized I had no idea how to communicate to Nyla that I needed to be invited. So thank you, Nyla. Thank you, Stacy, for this. I wanted to take time and give just a deep dive on some of the stuff that we're thinking in terms of a couple of key initiatives on the strategic plan. We will continue to update you on our strategic plan process every year in events like this, as well as share stories in the Blazer Blast about what we're doing and the work that we're doing. But this is an example, I think, of for those of you who are maybe prospective parents or newer parents to university, the way we think about our work. We are actively engaging in evaluating where we are we doing what we say we want to do in meaningful ways, and then using the data that we collect to drive program and to think about things. Another way that we show kind of who we are in a story I'll tell from this week, and Dave Vesper did a good job with this. This is Dave and I have worked together at university for over 20 years now, and Stacy has worked with us for several of those 15, 17, I lose track. Um, every so often, there comes along a new social media app that is designed to have students anonymously comment on things about each other. This is partly why our social media numbers are up in increasing anxiety and increasing mental health factors. If you read a lot of parenting books, research on the young teenage mind right now, social media is one of the least productive ways for students to engage in technology. There are benefits, there is connection that comes from it, but the data is showing that it's really increasing anxiety and increasing that FOMO, that fear of missing out, right? If someone's posting an awesome photo and I'm not in the awesome photo, then I've missed out on something. One of the things that happens every few years is a new app will come on the scene, and students will engage with it. And sometimes there will be behavior that is not behavior that we would like because it's not kind, because it's increasing that social pressure. And what happens at university, and this has happened in several instances, is not long after anyone starts using that app, does a student come forward and say, I've heard about this thing, and it seems like we're not behaving the way we should, or people are not behaving the way we should, or that this is not doing good in our community. And then we address it. So last week, a new app rolled out about a month or so ago called Poll Chat, where kids rate things, take polls online. We did have some silly things, some questions about like who knows when prom is, should I date my best friend's sister? And some that were more mean-spirited. And students stood up and said, hey, this doesn't seem right. We're not doing the right things as a community. And we were able to talk about it at community meeting. We were able to intervene with some particular students that were involved to work at a mentoring level and to respond in a way that was productive and fit our values. And I have to tell you, by the end of the week, the students had stopped using the app. We aren't we aren't ever going to stay ahead of them in terms of new apps that come out or things that technology is doing to distract them, but we do a really good job of intervening, talking to them about what we value as a community, what they themselves say they value, and then having behavior that may be what we don't want corrected because the students understand that it's important. So that was kind of an interesting thing to see how quickly we became aware of what was happening. We talked about it, and then literally in 3 days, the use of the app at university, high school at least, has declined significantly. So I was really proud that our community stood up and did that. Now, I'm going to pause here. My closeout is events to remind people of between now and the end of the year. I saw that Dave's been answering some questions in the chat, but are there any questions anyone wants to drop in there, any that have come up that I haven't talked about, or points to make more clear?
So far, we haven't seen any additional questions to other than what you've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, I will say if you're on here and a question percolates or comes up, my policy is to talk with anyone who has a question. At any time, we can schedule a meeting. So please reach out if you do have a question. I hope what you found in your experience at university is that we will do our best to answer it, whether it's myself or Dave Vesper, Stacy Summitman, anyone else who works here. So if questions come up, please, please, please let us know. And thank you for joining us. So to close out, I'm just going to do a quick whirlwind tour. The spring is the fastest semester at University High School, but there are a couple key dates that you should be paying attention to. We're wrapping up our our winter sports season. So girls basketball concluded their season. They in the sectional semifinals last week. Girls swimming has concluded. I just found out today we had a very small but mighty girls basketball team. There were 7 girls on the team, and 4 of them are being recognized with all conference honors. So that was kind of cool to see that with 4 of our 7 girls honored with all conference honors. But boys swimming has their sectional coming up next week. Boys basketball here in a few weeks will have their sectionals. For those of you who are freshman and sophomore parents, it is not too early to start thinking about college. So we do have our college financial aid evening for freshmen and sophomores on Thursday, February 25th, to just talk about the ins and outs of what do we need to be thinking about in terms of supporting students through paying for college and financial aid application and all of that stuff. Our academic team is having an outstanding year. Their state tournament we're actually going to host in mid-March, so that is March 15th. We have over 100 students involved in our music program. There's a spring music concert on March 21st that'll feature the choir, the orchestra, the wind ensemble, and the percussion ensemble. Right before spring break, uh, make sure you have on your calendar student parent mentor conferences. There'll be signups in the blast for you to sign up for a time via Veracross, but those will be on Thursday and Friday, March 27th and 28th. An always hyped event is the PA Term Preview Night. So that is Thursday, April 10th. If you are a prospective or newly enrolled incoming freshman parent, you are invited to attend this too. This is when we give parents a sneak preview of the January term course offerings for next year. So for January of 2026, the day before we tell the kids. And the PA graciously provides some snacks for us. I saw a question drop in the chat. Yes, and I didn't have it up here, but Winter Formal is still taking place on February 22nd here in a couple weeks. So we are having our Winter Formal dance that is hosted on campus on February 22nd. Your children should know information about that, and tickets go on sale soon. Grandparents' Day at the end of April in conjunction with Our theater production, which is Annie. They are in auditions and callbacks right now, so it's being cast as we speak. Well, not as we speak because we canceled the events tonight, but it's being cast this week. And for new families, it'll be the end of April when we have new student registration. Returning families, your students register with your mentors through the regular mentoring process. But if you have an incoming new student, those events will be at the end of April. And then May moves very quickly. We have our last open house of the year on May 4th. Prom, which we host at the Hotel Carmichael, will be Saturday, May 16th. Academic Recognition Night. This is where our honor societies honor students, National Honor Society, Spanish National Honor Society, Science National Honor Society. Our peer tutors are recognized. Thursday, May 22nd, if you're a current parent of an artist or musician or a future parent of an artist or musician, this is a great event. Our senior art students put on an art show in Fairbanks lobby. Our music program is doing their coffee house covers, ideally outside in good weather, so keep your fingers crossed. We bring in a coffee truck, and students perform small group kind of coffee house style music, and there's art for you to look at. It will be amazing. And then finally, graduation this year, May 31st, at the Palladium, with our 81 graduating seniors. So thank you for joining us tonight. I hope to see you around at some of these things. As always, if you have questions, please, please, please reach out. And thank you so much for being part of our school.